black helicopters, government corruption, waging war on the New World Order. It's all right here on the Jon Arthur Live Radio Show. Now, live from his worldwide command post in the studios of WXEI, 95.3 FM in Crestview, Florida. Here is Jon Arthur.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jim Michaels. Hello, America. Hello, world. The Jon Arthur Live Radio Show is on the air. We're broadcasting live this evening right here in the studios of WXEI 95.3 FM, the talk of Crestview. Coming up this hour, lots of good stuff to talk about. Ted Cruz picking his running mate, Carly Fiorina. I like the choice. It's very unconventional when you have not gotten the nomination to already announce a pick, but I think it's a big win for Ted Cruz. I'll tell you why. We'll also talk about the stats are in. Americans haven't gotten a real raise in 16 years. Yet, of course, Obama is blasting anyone critical of the economy. And speaking of the elections, my friends, Hillary rotten to the core Clinton has received fewer votes this go-round than in 2008 when she ran against Barack Obama. Things not looking good for Hillary rotten to the core Clinton. We'll also talk about Mr. Donald Trump and, of course, the hell that he is wrecking across America with his protests and his idiotic ideology. But we'll talk about all this. Plus, we'll take your calls. I tested out the 800 lines today, and we've had some issues in certain areas, but you can try it. 877-777-WXEI. 877-777-9934 if you'd like to be a part of the show. Well, the news today, the big news today is the economy. And it's not looking really very good for you and I. You know, lots of folks are trying to get a job these days. And, you know, you hear it all the time. All I can find is a part-time job. All I can find is a job with no benefits. So you have people with 2 and 3 part-time jobs trying to sustain a family. Have you ever started wondering why you see so many houses for sale these days? Because people had to leave them because they could not pay the mortgage. Well, some of the reasoning has been released today. And of course, Mark Twain is credited with the saying, figures don't lie, but liars figure, right? Well, if he were around today, Mark Twain's quote might go something like this: figures do lie, and liars figure out how to make people believe them. And, folks, I'm here to tell you that this is a horrible economy we're seeing today. Well, going further, you know, and granted it's not catchy, figures do lie, liars figured out how to make people believe them, but, you know, quotes go a long way towards explaining something that is bothering most political pundits today. Barack Obama whined last week that he's not getting enough credit for the economy. Well, what in the world is he talking about? Our economy is shot to hell. Our economy has been basically destroyed by his policies. The policies of George W. Bush were not good. The policies of Barack Hussein Insane Obama are worse. They're worse. Well, Democrats are beside themselves, wondering why Americans are so angry that they might be willing to elect a Ted Cruz or a Donald Trump as president, when the official unemployment rate is supposedly at 5%. that oil prices are near their lowest level in a decade, and the economy has been expanding for 7 straight years, according to these, quote, figures. So what we're seeing, of course, are a bunch of bogus figures, lies, and, of course, why aren't Americans happier, right? Because Americans are mad as hell. One of those pundits, made me chuckle Tuesday night. When he was talking about Donald Trump's primary victories in 5 states, he suggested that Americans were somehow being brainwashed by the media into thinking that the economy was really bad when, in fact, it was good. Well, of course, on Thursday of this week, the Commerce Department showed just how good the economy was not. Don't you find it incredible that for probably 16 years, 8 years under this bozo we're living under now, Barack Obama, and 8 years under the last bozo, George W. Bush, yeah, I'm an equal opportunity offender. I basically consider myself a conservative libertarian. So Republicans and Democrats alike are fair game for me. If you listened last week to the show, you know that I have endorsed Ted Cruz for president. I truly believe that Ted Cruz, if he wins Indiana, which I believe he will, it will go on to a contested convention, and I pray that America has a chance to be great again. Not with Donald Trump, but with Ted Cruz. But Thursday, 2 days ago, the Commerce Department released some data. And it announced that the gross domestic product grew by an annual rate of just 0.5% in the first 3 months of 2016. But that didn't stop the media, the left-wing media that tries to glamorize Barack Obama and tries to make everyone think that everything is so great in America, trying to explain away the disappointment. The New York Times, for example, suggested softly that the recovery has 2 sides, right? 2 sides. Toward the bottom of the piece, it included the startling fact that factories shed nearly 50,000 jobs in February and in March, wiping out all the gains recorded last year. The proportion of Americans in the active labor force remains depressed by historical standards. And more than 6 million workers say, and this is what I was alluding to earlier, 6 million workers say that they are in part-time jobs because they cannot find full-time work. 6 million Americans, folks, are trying to live on part-time jobs. What in the world is going on? But of course, the New York Times continued, we found some anecdotes of companies that are hiring. Of course, you're always going to find somebody who's hiring. There's a company called AdCom in Navarre, Florida. I worked with them for a brief period in my life. They are always hiring. You know why they're always hiring? They're always hiring because they're always firing. I also worked with another company called West Corporation in my lifetime. West Corporation was always hiring because, yes, they're always firing. There's a lot of dirty deeds done dirt cheap at these companies. So of course the New York Times can go out and find any kind of company like an AdCom, like a West Corporation, that are hiring. But it's not just political spin that explains the rose-colored coverage. Another explanation is that the media is just plain stupid. quick to accept guidance from economists on Wall Street, for example, who have a vested interest in making everything wonderful, right? It can't be all gloom and doom, because then, the stocks might fall. Economists understand what statistical noise is. And if you don't, here's a definition from a website called WiseGeek. Strictly defined, statistical noise is a term that refers to the unexplained variation or randomness that is found within a given data sample or formula. There are two primary forms of it: errors and residuals. So, in other words, where I'm going with this is economic statistics may not make sense in the short term because something is innocently interfering with the accuracy of the data, or someone is intentionally fooling with the numbers, which is what we're seeing now. You cannot tell me that with 6 million people on part-time jobs and millions of people that have left the workforce that we're at 5% unemployment. The numbers don't add up. The numbers do not add up. Our economy is in the tank. Obama can say whatever he wants to say. You can have people fooling with the numbers all day long, but it doesn't change the reality of where we're living now. I do believe that somebody is intentionally fooling with the nation's economic data. And there is questionable data collections, especially leading up to the presidential election in 2012. These days, the data is simply misleading. Take the economic data that came out throughout the first quarter of 2016 as your example. Excuse me. The Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta keeps real-time track of the nation's economic data using something that it calls GDP Now. At the beginning of January, GDP Now was showing the U.S. economy growth at about 2.7% annualized rate. By last week, GDP Now had been ratcheted all the way down to 0.6%, slightly better than the actual number reported by the Commerce Department on Thursday. So how could the Atlanta Fed have been so wrong at 2.7% and our Commerce Department actually saying it's 0.5%? You know, we've been predicting on this radio show for a long time that the government's economic data in the first quarter is thrown off by inaccurate seasonal adjustments, among other things, so they claim. And they try and use these seasonal adjustments to try and smooth out predictable economic patterns so that data doesn't bounce around. You don't want data to show that, for instance, millions of jobs are lost in the summertime just because teachers are temporarily laid off. Now, I understand those numbers. But see, this administration doesn't use those numbers. This administration fabricates the numbers. This administration likes it when people lose their jobs and don't re-enter the workforce so that they can be no longer counted as unemployed. That's what seems to be happening now. Early in the first quarter, the government reported better than expected data, which led to the Atlanta Fed's bad forecast of 2.6% growth. But those numbers were quickly revised over the next few months. This sort of statistical noise obviously has been going on for the last 16 years. The Great Recession threw off normal adjustments, and this will continue to happen. U.S. economic data today is untrustworthy at best. Oh, John, how can you say that this is untrustworthy? I'll tell you why it's untrustworthy. Because, again, if you're counting people with part-time jobs as employed, That's misleading. If you're counting folks that have left the workforce as unemployed temporarily, and then when they don't come back that they're gone forever, that's misleading. Even worse, it is causing the Federal Reserve and others to make bad decisions. Again, Americans are not happy. Do I think Donald Trump is the answer? Hell no. Donald Trump will make things worse. Do I think Ted Cruz is the answer? I think he would be an improvement. Do I think Hillary Clinton is the answer? Hell no. She would destroy America. Donald Trump would be about the equivalent on our side of the fence. So who do we put our trust in and our faith in? We put our trust and faith ultimately in God Almighty, in Jesus Christ. But I believe that America is getting one more chance. One more chance to have a Ronald Reagan type candidate like Ted Cruz, with a brilliant vice president named Carly Fiorina. That's our last chance. You know, I hear so many radio shows praising Donald Trump as the outsider. How is this the case when Donald Trump has been parading around for years with the Democrats? How is this the case that he's the outsider when Donald Trump has been the biggest supporter of Nancy Pelosi? This guy writes checks to all the Democrats. He says he loves Hillary rotten to the core Clinton. And they're so much alike. But brain dead America goes out and they vote for Donald Trump. You know why? Because they're afraid of Ted Cruz. They're afraid that Ted Cruz might actually endorse a day of prayer. That Ted Cruz might actually be like Ronald Reagan and care about America and want to return America to its founding fathers' principles. That's why people are afraid. Donald Trump is the lesser of all the evils, right? He's the lesser of the evils because then you don't have to really worry about a Christian in the White House. But you don't have to worry as much about, like, Hillary, because Hillary is totally evil. You know what God says about folks that are in the gray? He's going to spit you out. If you support Donald Trump, he's going to spit you out. If you support Hillary Clinton, you're just plain evil. If you support somebody like Ted Cruz, then you're doing the right thing, in my opinion. But I'm not God. But you know what? Every time I hear Ted Cruz talk about any decision that he made, he said he prayed on it. He said he prayed about his decision to choose Carly Fiorina as his running mate. Have you ever heard Donald Trump say that he's prayed for anything? Never. When asked by the media, do you need to repent of anything, Donald Trump says, I have nothing to repent about. Nothing. This is a man who has used and abused employees, has used and abused the laws of America, has used bankruptcy laws to get filthy rich. Do you really want the negotiator in the White House? I don't. You don't negotiate with terrorists. You don't negotiate with Iran. You don't negotiate with Japan. You don't negotiate with South Korea and North Korea and just give everybody nuclear weapons. You know what I call that? I call that the apocalypse. Maybe Donald Trump is the Antichrist. Sure is ironic that all of these idiot people that call themselves Christians are flocking to this man who is clearly a non-Christian. You know, when you get married, or if you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, what does God say? You need to be equally yoked. Are you really equally yoked with Donald Trump? Are you equally yoked with Hillary Clinton? I can, without a shadow of a doubt, tell you on this radio show today that I, Jon Arthur, am equally yoked with Ted Cruz and Carly Fiorina. If you're listening today and you're a Christian, today, and you say, yes, I'm equally yoked with that fool, Donald Trump, then you're a fool. You're being utterly deceived by Satan himself. I know a lot of Patriot radio shows and the Alex Jones show and the Drudge Report and all of these news outlets that are just loving Donald Trump to death. Well, you're selling your soul to Satan himself, my friends. You're selling your soul to the devil. Because Donald Trump, while he says he's going to build a wall, he doesn't have your best interests in mind. He's not the outsider. This guy is an insider. He's been using politicians to get what he wants for years. He's not a good guy. He doesn't have America and our best interest in mind. He has Donald Trump's interest in mind. You're not going to hear favorable things about Donald Trump on this radio show. If you listen to this radio show years ago when George W. Bush was in office, a lot of folks were upset with me because I didn't toe the Republican line. Because I didn't sit here and praise George W. Bush all day long and dog out all the Democrats. Well, I can tell you today that you've got a choice. Especially you folks in California. This network is based in California. I would encourage you folks in California listening to support Ted Cruz. If you make a deal with the devil, you're going to get the devil. Yeah, sure, maybe this is the end times. Maybe this is a part of the book of Revelation, right? Where Americans reject Jesus Christ, reject righteousness, reject anything that is good and fine in this country. And you're going to reject your future. You know what your future is going to include? The mark of the beast. Your future is going to include the Armageddon. It's going to include the apocalypse. It's going to include a whole lot of bad things, and a lot of people are going to die. Do I think maybe God's giving us one last choice? Possibly. I've made my choice. I will never, ever support the devil. And if it's Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, I refuse to vote for either one of them. I'm not voting for the lesser of two evils. I encourage you to vote for somebody that is at least attempting to head us in the right direction in this country. You know, I heard a couple of days ago that Barack Obama refused to designate a National Day of Prayer again this year. This is the kind of insanity that we've been seeing for the last 8 years. This is the kind of insanity that will continue under Hillary rotten to the core Clinton. And I can tell you, without a shadow of a doubt, you're being deceived if you think that it's going to be wonderful under a Donald Trump administration. Because it's not. Have you wondered why Donald Trump refuses to debate Ted Cruz these days? He's running like a scared dog. He's running like a scared, hurt animal. So what if he won 5 northeastern states? The Northeast is lost. The people in the Northeast, they worship the devil. They supported the devil, they voted for the devil, and now the devil won 5 states. But I think you're going to see that change in Indiana. Folks, we're going to take our bottom of the hour break, and then we'll be back for segment number 2. Keep it right here on the First Amendment Radio Network. 877-777-WXEI. We'll be right back.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Minutes after the hour, you're listening to the Jon Arthur Live Radio Show, coast to coast and around the world. Welcome back to segment number 2 of the fastest hour on your radio. If you'd like to be a part of the show, I would certainly love to hear from you. All you have to do is use the toll-free line, 877-777-WXEI, 877-777-9934. Be a part of the show. Well, Latino activists are raising hell about Donald Trump. Latino activists are angry at Donald Trump, of course, for many reasons. Lots of folks, of course, consider Donald Trump a racist. Latino activists say they expect more large protests as Donald Trump moves his presidential campaign into California. Again, our radio network here, First Amendment Radio, is based in California. We broadcast live, of course, right here from the studios of WXEI here in Florida. So we're a long way away. But I think California is going to be a pivotal state. I think that, I think Ted Cruz has a lot of supporters in California. Donald Trump trying to win a big state like California, it's a possibility. Lots of fruits and nuts, so to speak, in California, but I believe there are a lot of good people as well. But Donald Trump faced large and hostile demonstrations outside a rally Thursday night in Costa Mesa and at the Burlingame Hotel, where he delivered a speech to the California Republican Convention on Friday. You know, one thing I can tell you, and maybe some of you have seen the video, but Ted Cruz was confronted by a Donald Trump supporter, and Ted Cruz treated him with respect. Whenever Donald Trump has a protester, what happens? Usually the protester gets beaten up, and Donald Trump encourages that kind of behavior. So Donald Trump is not a uniter. He is a divider. He is dividing America. I believe that Ted Cruz would be a uniter. Luis Serrano, an organizer with California Immigration Youth Justice Alliance, said, I think we're going to get worse if he gets the nomination. And if he's the front runner, I think it's going to escalate. We're going to keep showing up and standing against the actions and the hate that Donald Trump is creating. We're going to continue to just show up in numbers and stand together. See, this is the kind of thing that I'm going to tell you once again is going to define the outcome of the presidential elections. Donald Trump has been subverting the Republican Party. Donald Trump, when he was in the South, in states that have crossover voting, was being helped along by the Democrats. Bernie Sanders at the time was of course, receiving the positive end of that because Hillary supporters knew that she was going to get the nomination, so they thought, who's the easiest person that we could go up against and beat? Well, that would be Donald Trump. So Democrats went out in numbers in the South and made sure that Donald Trump received enough votes to win a number of southern states instead of Ted Cruz. If you'll notice, states that were not crossover states like Texas and a handful of others, Ted Cruz was victorious by big numbers. And it's not because necessarily even that Texas was his home state. It wasn't a crossover state. Donald Trump was wiped out. And the good thing is, to my knowledge, Indiana is not a crossover state. So you're going to get true numbers in Indiana, and I'm hopeful that Ted Cruz is going to be victorious. And if he is victorious, then you know what? This thing's going to a contested convention. And when Ted Cruz gets the nomination, I don't want to hear any whining about how an election was stolen, because Donald Trump has already been stealing this election as we've been going on, with the help of the Democrats. I mentioned to open up the show that Hillary Clinton was getting less votes now than in 2008. I think that's a big result of Hillary supporters crossing the line, voting for Trump now to assure that Trump is the nominee to assist Hillary in victory in November. It all makes sense. Well, getting back to the story, young people went out to the streets and said, we've had enough of this. The next test will come Sunday, tomorrow, when a May Day rally is planned in downtown Los Angeles. Los Angeles police have been meeting with demonstrators for some time in order to ensure a peaceful protest. LAPD Assistant Chief Michael Moore said, we expect May Day to be peaceful. We're always prepared for any eventuality where anything can happen, but we have nothing to suggest that that will be the case. Well, protest organizers in Southern California said the anti-Trump demonstrations spread throughout word of mouth and involved mostly young people, college students, bringing with them the Mexican flags, which were once discouraged at immigrant rights rallies for fear that they would be regarded as un-American. Well, you know, it is un-American. Why the hell are you waving your Mexican flag here in America? If you love Mexico that much, go back. Because I can tell you that you're not going to get much more support from Ted Cruz either. Ted Cruz wanted to build the wall a long time before Donald Trump ever came up with the idea. Patrick J. Buchanan in 1992 suggested building a wall long before Ted Cruz or Donald Trump. So again, one thing that I like, and this is breaking news tonight, and this is an update from the California Republican Party convention. Lots of folks liked former Governor Pete Wilson. Well, guess what? Former California Governor Pete Wilson has now endorsed, yes, Ted Cruz. He did not endorse Donald Trump. Former California Governor Pete Wilson jumped into the presidential fray today, announcing his endorsement of Ted Cruz. I love that. And this was in front of a packed house at the state Republican Party spring convention. Wilson told the crowd he is committed to preserving our constitutional liberties. Keep in mind, folks, this is a former California governor. Then he took a dig at Donald Trump, saying we can't afford a wild card. Wilson became one of the most polarizing political figures in recent California history, advocating for Proposition 187, the ballot measure that would have barred public services for immigrants in the United States illegally. And see, here's what I like about this. Former California Governor Pete Wilson was all about a wall and protecting the citizens of California from illegal aliens long before Trump ever tried that bandwagon. And yet, who does he support? He doesn't support Donald Trump. He supports Ted Cruz. There's a reason for it. Because if you're a real conservative and you know what's going on in politics, you know that Donald Trump is a liar. Donald Trump loves to call everybody else a liar. Lying Ted, right? That's because he's the liar himself. Donald Trump loves to divert all the attention off himself onto somebody else. Well, the measure, Proposition 187, is largely blamed for driving California's growing number of Latino voters away from the Republican Party, supposedly. But you know what? The truth hurts, doesn't it? Ted Cruz has called now for a crackdown on illegal immigration. Says he supports deporting 11 million immigrants here in the United States illegally. See, here's the difference. When you hear somebody like Donald Trump saying he wants to deport folks, he has stated that he wants to deport you back illegal, but then bring you right back in. Touchback amnesty. That's not the real deal. Ted Cruz is the real deal. He's calling for a crackdown on illegal immigration, and then he says we're going to deport the 11 million immigrants, illegal immigrants here in the United States illegally. So again, this is what I'm talking about. You need to be real. So big thumbs up to former Governor Pete Wilson endorsing Ted Cruz today, and that's a huge endorsement in my opinion, as far as the state of California goes. Because this is a man who has been fighting against illegal immigration back when Donald Trump was praising Hillary Clinton. So there you go. 877-777-9934. If you're having some issues with the toll-free lines, we will get those straightened out by next week when we do next Saturday's show. 877-777-WXEI. And by the way, we're here every Saturday night now. 7 p.m. Central Time, 5 p.m. California time. Every Saturday night. Yeah, we used to do this show Monday through Friday, but it was disjointed trying to do the job of acting and trying to keep up a radio show. But we're not giving up. We're here. We're taking on this new world order. We're setting things straight, and this is true conservatism, my friends. 877-777-9934. Be a part of the show. Yeah, and I want to give you the statistics on Hillary rotten to the core Clinton. See, a lot of folks are saying, well, you know what? Maybe this is the truth that Donald Trump can beat Hillary. Because here's the headline off Breitbart. Hillary has received hundreds of thousands fewer votes in 2016 versus 2008. Again, I have explained that. It has nothing to do with Hillary rotten to the core Clinton faltering. It has everything to do with people crossing party lines to support Donald Trump in his bid to lose to Hillary. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has badly underperformed in 2016 compared with her first run in 2008, a new data analysis done exclusively by Breitbart News shows. It's particularly telling when she's gotten fewer votes in 2016 than she did in 2008, especially because of the fact that the 2008 race was a three-way race between Clinton, Obama, and ex-Senator John Edwards. She was, despite being the front runner for some time, the ultimate loser of that race. And of course, now she's been, up against a devout, proud socialist, right? Bernie Sanders of Vermont. But obviously, her poor performance in the primaries has got Democrats concerned. If I were a Democrat, I wouldn't be concerned at all. Because I can tell you that she's going to need a strong showing from the Democratic base in November. She will get that. Donald Trump, who says that all the Democrats are voting for me, you know what? You're right, Donald. They're voting for you to try and subvert the Republican Party, to try and ensure Ted Cruz is not your nominee. They will for a day. And whenever the election comes in November, if indeed Ted Cruz does not make it onto the ballot, and it's Trump versus Clinton, and when Clinton wins by a landslide, I want every one of you fools that supported Donald Trump over Ted Cruz to give me a call, and I want you to explain why you're such a fool. Because it's going to happen. I pray to God that it doesn't happen, that Ted Cruz is the ultimate nominee in a contested convention on ballot number 2. Thank God Marco Rubio now is encouraging his delegates to vote Ted Cruz. So if this does go to a contested thing, because this whole election process been for, and that's a problem. But so the Democrats are all freaking out. They're all worried. Basically, there's a 2.1 in Hillary rotten to the core has received the round. And I can tell you that 5% of those votes have been going up. Donald Trump is a sideshow, my friends. Donald Trump is not the real deal. He's not a conservative. He's his whole life he has suggested that he really patterns himself after the Democratic Party. This guy, when asked what were the two biggest things that he was worried about, he said basically housing and health care. It was like, what? That's what the Democrats say. Nothing about security, nothing about social issues, and not to mention the fact I can guarantee you, I saw Donald Trump in Mobile, Alabama. He had the guts and the gall to call out and say that he was going to be the biggest supporter of women's rights in America if he's president. I knew what he meant. He meant that he was going to support a woman's right to choose to kill their child. I'm here to tell you, I don't support that right. It's not a right to kill anything. It's an abomination. And for women to kill their unborn children, it's despicable. It really is. So for Donald Trump to lately say that he has had an epiphany and suddenly maybe he's a pro-life guy, I'm not buying it. I am not buying it, my friends. 877-777-9934. 877-777-WXEI. Yeah, a couple of days ago, Ted Cruz made his VP choice of Carly Fiorina. Obviously anything like that is a gamble, right? It's obviously going to be a gamble because, obviously, when you make a choice like that, you're picking an ultra-conservative female. But I believe that is what we needed. And what's interesting is since Ted Cruz picked Carly Fiorina to be his running mate, suddenly Cruz-Fiorina has been surging. And the collective heads of the political class and the mainstream media have been exploding. Oh, it's desperation, they're calling it. You got that former Speaker John Boehner. What a piece of work this guy is. I could use some choice words, but I'll spare you. I mean John Boehner, the consummate establishment insider, right? He had the guts and the gall again this week to refer to Ted Cruz as Lucifer. Another Washington relic, Congressman Peter King, called Ted Cruz worse than the devil. So these establishment Republicans would rather Lucifer himself be president because these people are evil. These people aren't the real deal. They're not conservatives. They're not Christians. They're not good guys. They're not good people. And ironically enough, when they support the likes of a Donald Trump, it's very telling. And then, of course, now this week, they've turned their focus on Carly Fiorina, using the same desperate attacks on her that they used when they tried to keep her off the debate stage. Remember that? Liberal talking head Stephen Colbert called her Disney's wicked stepmother. Rolling Stone called her the anti-woman woman, and so on and so forth. Why? Because the establishment and the mainstream media, they are frightened to death. Frightened to death that we may have a real conservative administration that I believe would be more conservative and more Christian leaning than Ronald Reagan. There's an old saying, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. The establishment knows where the campaign of Ted Cruz and Carly Fiorina is headed. And it scares them to death. It scares folks that listen to some of these Patriot shows to death, too. They're scared to death that you might go from a non-Christian Muslim administration to an ultra-conservative Christian administration. I'm going to tell you this again. That is the only thing that can save America in these dark days. In recent polls, folks, Ted Cruz has already closed the gap in next week's critical Indiana primary. The numbers are continuing to rise as Donald Trump's numbers are falling. This is important because guess what? If the fine folks of Indiana support Ted Cruz and Carly Fiorina, it's game on. If they support Ted Cruz and Carly Fiorina, guess what, my friends? It's heading to a contested convention. Donald Trump's subverting of the Republican Party will have ended. Do I think it was a move of desperation to choose Carly Fiorina? No, I think it was a move of brilliance. It was a masterful move of brilliance by Ted Cruz. It's clear the media elites have been ready to anoint Donald Trump long before the race is even over. It's also clear to you and me that Donald Trump's nomination would be a disaster for conservatives, a disaster for the Republican Party, and a disaster for America. I'm going to lay it out for you, plain and simple, folks. If Trump is the nominee, conservatives will be forced to choose between two liberals, both corrupt, both big government crony capitalists, both part of the system that has gotten us in the mess we're in now. Worse, if we nominate Donald Trump, we would be guaranteeing 4 years of Hillary rotten to the core Clinton in the White House. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of voting for the lesser of two evils. I don't know about you, but I'm going to finally make a stand for righteousness and righteousness' sake. I'm not going to ever vote for Donald Trump. So you can count me in on the Never Trump movement because I will never, ever vote for Mr. Liberal Donald Trump. Ted Cruz is a constitutional conservative. He's made enemies in both parties. Why? Because he's dared to stand up to bipartisan corruption in Washington, D.C. He has fought tirelessly to change the system. If he's elected, he will change America. Folks, we'll see you next Saturday. Thanks for listening. God bless you. God bless America. And keep up the fight. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Are we walking into the enemy's camp, laying our weapons down, shedding our armor as we go, leaving it on the ground? We've got to be strong in the power of His might, prove to the enemy. We are the army of the Lord, and we've won the victory.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today, so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.